So, hey, listen, this is the Supermassive NFT show on the Defiant. I am joined by the very incredible NFT collector / Red Bean DAO / the Mad Pup / Nest DAO, the one and only Sven.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
And of course, Vector Meldrew, who is rocking the background that can only be Mark Zuckerberg as the Terminator. We have so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course, we have Alp Gazimov, who's piloting, well, all manner of things. Okay. We clearly don't pay him enough. Sven, welcome to the show. How are you doing? Nice to have you.
No, nice to be here. Thanks for having me, and good morning to everyone out there in the Metaverse. It's great to finally be on it. We've tried to do this for a few months now, so glad we can make it work.
Absolutely, 100%. And Lex, aka Vector Meldrew, please explain to the folks out there who you are and also what the hell is going on behind you right now.
Well, my name is Vector. I'm a 3D artist, also part-time degenerate in the Metaverse. And in the background behind me right now is Mark Zuckerberg refaced on the Terminator, which I think is a good analogy for potentially where he's trying to head with things.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, it's a good place to start because the Metaverse has been the big draw of this space. It's the big new buzzword. Facebook's earnings report was not what everyone was expecting. The Facebook stock dropped like a crypto stock last night. Sven, what was your take on that? Because obviously these things bleed into the narrative around this space and everything that we hold dear. But how do you read this?
So I read this as a bit of a transition period. Right. I mean, if you look at a lot of the growth of the tech giants, Facebook certainly qualifies as one of those, what they've experienced over the past decade. And now you see them all trying to scramble and find a way into the Web3 space. Right. I mean, Facebook going as far as to change its name to Meta. And to me, it shows that they don't yet have the right road. We talk about roadmaps a lot with PFP projects. Perhaps the legacy tech giants don't have the right roadmaps in place. Clearly, the growth that they're forecasting wasn't what the market was hoping for, and this is why we're seeing the pivot that they're trying to make. I think it also goes to show the opportunity that kind of native Web3 companies, and let's call them companies, right? Yuga Labs is a company. I mean, there's news out today about the valuation that they went out to raise at. These are the new unicorns, right? These are going to be the new tech giants. And, this transition period, I'm old enough to remember the tech giants of the early .com bubbles, and a lot of them aren't around. They've certainly, or if they are around, they've changed their names and evolved many times. So, we may be entering a phase like that. And this is not to say that Facebook won't be around or other large, Web 2 businesses won't be around. But we're going to see some that, just quite frankly, don't make it.
Yeah, I guess that's the point, isn't it? The Metaverse is an unknown, brand new narrative, but Facebook has shareholders. Facebook is a massive company. I was actually thinking about the decisions and the conversations that Yuga Labs must be having right now as a young, fresh, exciting Web3 dynamic company, but that is entirely ill-equipped, or is basically nobody knows how to do this right. And so you'll have these VCs jumping in and saying, we can fund you, we can also give you advice, and we can give you help. And then there'll be lawyers, and there'll be all this kind of rapid scaling up maturation of what Yuga Labs is about that's going to force them into a place where they're like, well, what do we do here? Do we take the money? Do we become this thing? Like, what do we do here? And if you know the Facebook origin story, these are the decisions that they made. They scaled it incredibly quickly and they made it work. But I can absolutely see the Yuga Labs team having this same conversation, these naive young thrusters who've just built this thing from nothing. And it's like, oh shit, what do we do now? But what would you say to them, Sven? I mean, I'm pretty sure you've talked to them, but like, how do you give them good advice here?
Well, first of all, I don't think that the team at Yuga needs much advice from me at this point. If I could give them advice, perhaps I would have launched a $5 billion brand as well. But I do think they are a very humble team. I think a lot of the better. And we should have a conversation right around, projects that are led by teams that are really, these are founders, right? These are founders of startups, and they're stewards of what we hope will become very large, successful Web3 businesses. And what I would, say to them, if I could give them any advice, is, study up on your history. Study what Facebook did early on, their both successes and their missteps. And try, of course, to emulate the successes and avoid the missteps, acknowledging that you can't always do that. I think it's also when we look back over the past decade and the early days of Facebook. I mean, Facebook is coming up on, I guess, what is it, 18 years now as a company. Started out of a dorm room. It did a lot right in its early days of growth. And then it hit a point where it became this larger company, and the way to grow is really through acquisitions, right? I mean, the most successful acquisitions by far for Facebook is Instagram, for $1 billion. And you think about today, Yuga Lab, 6 months in, has a valuation that, rumored to be 5x that. And I don't think they would sell, to Facebook for anywhere close to that level. Of course, then they acquired WhatsApp for a much greater sum. It shows that some of these bigger companies, and what I always felt is Facebook's going to have a hard time, or Meta is going to have a hard time building a metaverse brand within itself, right? These large legacy companies are going to be looking to acquire metaverse businesses. You've seen it. I mean, this is not the direct analogy, but we've seen it also play out, of course, with Nike, an artifact with, and of course, the success that the clones have experienced since then. It's a lot easier when you are a mega corporation to buy a startup that can build it better than you can, right? Now, of course, then you want to avoid the challenges of, don't stifle their growth, don't stifle their creativity. And so, this is, again, not advice, but there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Yuga to partner up with larger, brands. They could if they want to, or they can build it on their own, right? They could follow the roadmap that, Facebook and many others have laid out before them. But there's a lot of risks in doing that too.
Yeah, there's an enormous amount of risks. Lex, what was your take on Bored Apes? You're an artist first and foremost. I mean, do you feel like you wish you had one, or sad you missed it? Like, I'm always worried that when we give a perspective on these things, it's like, oh yeah, we've kind of got one and we saw it, and it's like, but if you didn't and you missed it, how does that feel? What would how is it viewed externally?
I saw it minting. I got one. I mean, it was one of those things that I think everyone admits it was quite easy to miss at the time. I don't even think it was before that kind of mania phase. So from what I remember, it took a while to mint out, right? There was a period of a few days rather than...
Yeah, that's right.
And it kind of like exploded at the end when everyone got on board. So I was kind of right at the end. I went to mint more and didn't manage to mint more. Minted my one. I mean, from the outside looking in, I never fully got involved in the community in the way that, I know it's a very vibrant community, the Discords and everything. I guess I never really immersed myself in it to that level. But I mean, it's still like, it's become a staple in NFT culture as definitely a phenomenon for people that, especially, miss things like punks and wanted the next big thing to be early to. So I mean, it's unavoidable, really, but I think the issue that from the outside looking in, and the outside world and the larger world of not just us people that are kind of like maybe quite hyper focused on NFTs. I think the issue is that people don't quite understand it and use it as the grail example of NFTs and what NFTs is. And I'm mainly, when I'm saying that, I'm mainly referencing an opinion piece that was written in the Guardian newspaper. I don't know if either of you read that piece. But
sorry, the Guardian. You read the Guardian newspaper? It's a very left. It's a very left-leaning, artsy newspaper in the United Kingdom of the British Isles.
I avoid it. I'm not the biggest fan, and that's why I say opinion piece, because I feel like so many articles in there, especially, have become opinion pieces. But those opinions seem to be taken as like a consensus or some kind of news factual piece. But I feel that article kind of did damage in the sense that it pitched this Bored Ape Yacht Club as art, and a vision of the NFT art industry, when really it's a collectible series and it's different. So I think there's all these nuances that from the outside looking in, people don't quite understand. And Bored Apes achieved the highest price tag. They achieved like phenomenal growth. They've achieved incredible volume. But I think everybody just assumes that NFTs is apes. So I think there's a bit of maybe perception work to do for the outside to kind of start to separate some of these different projects and what they mean and what apes mean in the context of NFTs, art means in the context of NFTs, and then this next wave of more kind of utility focused NFT tokens. So I mean, overall, I'm a fan. I've followed it. I've invested it. I've still got my mutant. Sold the dog though. I didn't really want the dog. I wasn't really a fan of the dogs.
Yeah, but they were free. They were free. They were just like, oh, we've got nothing on the roadmap for the next 3 months. Let's just issue some dogs. And they were like, yeah, we'll keep them happy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Well, I don't know what they're trading at right now, and it's not really our place to say.
No,
we don't care about the price.
No financial advice. But yeah,
no, absolutely not. It is though. That's a fair point though. That basically the issue with this space is that counterculture movements spring up, and then they generally get overhyped and over participated, and then they sort of die under their own weight. We've seen this in DeFi with Olympus and with Abracadabra and all these kind of things. They just get exploded. Bored Apes is, and there's a banana on my face. Bored Apes has managed to avoid doing this by evolving in a way that other projects have been unable to do. But Sven, what was it like in the early days? Like the whole Bored Ape thing was like, it was ironic, right? It was deeply ironic. We were just like, oh yeah, this is bullshit. And they look sort of dumb. But like, I think people overplay the seriousness of the art component of that. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, you're not wrong at all. These are not meant to be, look, they're fun. They're fun in a very silly, childlike way. That is what caught my attention. I remember when the honorary apes were being posted on Twitter, and I saw a couple people sharing them, and I thought, okay, this looks cool. And I got my start, as I've talked a lot about, on NBA Top Shot, Nifty Gateway. I wasn't crypto native. I didn't even have a MetaMask my first few months as I was collecting. Certainly didn't have a lot of crypto itself. And so I said, okay, well, I recently got my first collectible. It was actually a crypto baby punk. That was a little bit of a mania for 2 weeks back in late March, early April, around them. And I said, all right, I'm gonna buy one ape pre-reveal. And I think I actually minted number 345, which I held as being an early pre-reveal minter was kind of cool. But it revealed, and it did take. They were, I think, for pre-sale for about a week. Maybe about 600 or 700 total sold. And then when they revealed, I said, I don't love my first ape. Let me buy another and another and another. And I remember talking to people on Discord, and everyone was just getting really excited. These were fun. These were silly. And I said, all right, I'm going to wake up in the morning, try to, pull some more ETH in, and I'll buy a few more. And of course, we know what happened. They sold out, and the rest is kind of history. The backstory on apes, I mean, they are supposed to be apes. They're us, right? They're us in the future. When the kind of the metaverse is played out, and we've all gotten really rich doing these silly things that we're doing today. It was never meant to be, it was not designed to be this luxury good, this luxury collectible that it's since become. What I think is interesting about apes is, you just talked about utility. That's the future. They pivoted towards that, right? The team, it was not designed this way. I actually was talking to a friend yesterday about how I don't think this team ever planned for this level of success. And it would have been, in many ways, arrogant to plan for this level of success. But they've achieved something that very few are able to achieve at any point in life, and certainly at any point in their careers. And they've done a great job, I think, pivoting and adapting to the success that they've experienced, to the point where, of course, now we're facing the rollout of their token, ApeCoin, blockchain gaming. It is not just a collectible anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's the stick that everyone wants to beat it with. It's like it's being held up as this thing. Celebrities are getting on board. Jimmy Fallon's talking to Paris Hilton about an item that nobody who watches the show can possibly afford or should even think that they would afford, and it's a flex. And yet at the same time, they should be criticized too heavily for this because they didn't set out to do this. They didn't set out in that way, but they did set the template for others to follow. And that's why we get to this, which is a list of the volume of projects. So CryptoPunks, thank you, Al Gazimov, for that totally ill-timed applause. He loaded a website. Oh, wow. Anyway, if we look here, we can see Doodles, Hate Prime, CryptoPunks, Mutant Ape Yo Club, Bored Ape Yo Club, CloneX, and Azuki. Like, even just a month ago, that would not have looked like that. Clearly, something has changed. And so we'll get to Azuki in a bit. But, like, Sven, what do you make of this kind of volume and the projects that are being elevated to, I hate to use the word blue chip, because it's not a word, it's two words. But, you know, the term blue chip in regards to these particular projects. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I don't like the term either. I think we're trying to classify things in a way that is often premature, and in a way to make ourselves feel better about what we're holding. But what I think about this, and I mean, if you looked at this board, first of all, if you pulled this up the week after Apes, you would have seen CryptoPunks at the top, and Apes would have risen to the number 2 spot very quickly because there was nothing else, right? And the gap between Punks and Apes was massive. And over time, what happened, right? Apes started to rise, more projects started to populate it. A lot of those projects are no longer on here, although some are, of course, Cool Cats being on there. You know, the Kongs as well. And now we've seen, you know, I don't like to talk about the flippening, but of course, once you have, you know, Apes surpassing Punks, it opened up the door for what's possible, that other projects would come and surpass not just Punks, but Apes as well. And so I think all, you know, of us must be cognizant that this list, you know, that we saw, you know, just now may look very different in the year. What I interpret from this and what I think we should talk about, you know, further, I mentioned already, you know, let's focus on teams. I think the team at Artifact, I think the team, you know, behind Azuki, I think these are teams that did plan for success. And again, this is not a knock on Larva. This is not a knock on Yuga, but now you have, you know, teams that are saying, okay, we've seen the templates laid out by CryptoPunks, by Apes. Let's build upon that, spending months and months and months planning, and not just planning for a release, but planning not a year, 2 years, many years down the line for what they can build with these businesses. And certainly with Artifact, I mean, with the Nike is a serious company. Nike is not going to acquire another company that isn't also equally serious. So that's my takeaway, right? We saw kind of Gen 1, Gen 2. These are Gen 3, you know, call them all PFP projects if you want. These are Gen 3 PFP avatar projects that are building much further out in the future.
So here is CloneX. Lex, you are a 3D artist. You know how difficult it is to take 3D elements, to clothe them, to make them move, to make them do things for you. Meebits was well ahead of its time, but can you give us an insight into what it's like just to actually manipulate objects in 3D and actually get them to do what you want them to do?
It takes a very long time. That is the short answer. Anything 3D is incredibly time consuming. And that's why, yeah, I was impressed with these since the moment I saw them. And I think there were so many teasers for a good few months. And, you know, every time I saw it, I was like, this is going to change the bar. And people that I was speaking to as well, you know, this because 3D avatars in this sense kind of, you know, 3D was like a big thing because so many things were 2D because it was easier. But this being like the first fully fleshed, high detail, like lots of different traits and lots of variety between the different characters. I think it really sets the bar, especially because it's, you know, you see all these different kind of heads and outfits and different features. I think with 3D stuff, because it takes so long, there's always, you know, like a temptation to change some colors here and there and keep it quite basic. But they've really got quite a wide variety of outfits. And then, you know, you add the Takeshi Murakami aspect to it, and, you know, his just how big he is and how distinctive his style is. You know, it's the icing on the cake. So I think they've done quite well in the fact they were just able to stand on the shoulders of these giants and just look into the future, see, right, this is obviously a big trend. How can we learn from some of these, you know, pros and cons from previous projects and then take it to the next level. So I definitely agree that, you know, this wave they've got a big advantage in the fact they can look behind them and iterate. I think it's amazing. Yeah, from an art perspective, definitely.
And just to point out, right, this was not the first project out of Artifact, right? Like this is a team that had been building prior to launching CloneX, and I think, you know, people at one point were frustrated, like, when is this project coming out, right? Like there was a lot of, you know, hype for better or for worse. You know, sometimes hype can be a dangerous thing when it comes to NFT launches, but people were excited about it because of some of the projects that Artifact had done prior to this, executing on this, and now the question is, what's next, right? And what's next became a much bigger question when Nike got involved. But it was also validating, I think, not just to Artifact, but to the entire, you know, NFT community, to see that, you know, Nike is planting its flag in the ground. And of course, we've seen Adidas do the same thing, plenty of others. But, you know, the Nike news is probably, of all the events I can think of that happened, you know, in the second half of last year, that might be the most important in terms of the mainstreaming of NFTs. And, you know, now 2022, right, we're 1 month in the books. January was a very big month, but I mean, you look ahead and you look, I mean, what Artifact is planning, what so many other companies are planning. We talked about Apes, what they're about to roll out. It's very exciting. And maybe that, you know, not to go back to what we talked about earlier, but kind of contrast that with the kind of disappointing and unexciting, you know, world of Facebook, right? And some of these legacy companies.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about with Artifacts. Firstly, they present like they're a traditional retail company that think about things in a very traditional way, but it couldn't be further from the truth. They are creator first, community first. They do so much that nobody even hears about. And there's this real danger that people can be put off by the mechanism by which they communicate, because there's no room to question what they do. They do the thing that they do in their way. They are unrelenting in that. And it's extremely admirable. It's also kind of, there's this French mentality, just like, fuck you, we're doing this. It's very counterculture. But like you said, Alex,
Vector.
They execute. It's really, really hard to do this. So there was something that they wrote in this post, chapter 2. We love Ready Player One, but we aren't there yet. They take a step-by-step approach. Down the bottom here we go. As you know, your clones don't have bodies yet. Before that, they'll need some wearables to take care of that. While we're preparing the 3D files as the first step of the ecosystem, we're preparing a wearable pipeline for our NFT drops and clones. And while we're building these features step by step this year, we encourage everyone in the community to pick up 3D, Blender, Marvelous, or Clothe 3D. I'm now going to put the mic over to Alp Gazimov, who is on the other side of this. We went into this year thinking, yeah, we're going to jump into Unreal Engine and everything's going to be fine and we're going to be fantastic and it's just going to work and it's going to be amazing. It couldn't be further from the truth. Al, can you give us a little insight into how fucking difficult it's been just to do anything in 3D and make it work?
Yeah, it's really not straightforward because, I mean, people study this at university. It's a whole industry, right? Like there are professionals who do this, but we are not at that level. So when we're watching a tutorial, when we have an idea of like spawning a banana right now, watch Robin. Yeah, you see that banana? We were trying to figure that out for quite some time. And after watching several videos, looking into like documents from Unreal Engine, we finally stumbled on the right tutorial to do it. It's really not straightforward. It's proven to be difficult, but once you get once you find the right tutorial, I guess it becomes more.
So you can quite clearly see that when the bananas drop on me, that they're hitting a collision mesh that is nothing to do with the collision mesh on my body. Even just getting to that was basically impossible. The thing that's circling around my neck on my metahuman is actually an artifact piece of design. The hoodie in the background is also artifact. There's a me bit behind me, and now Alp is just spamming the crap out of the bananas because that's what he wants to do.
Wait, I'm gonna switch the camera too now.
Okay, so just getting to this point is taking us a month, and this is garbage. It's absolute crap. honestly, to try and put that spinning thing around my neck and actually make it spin, that was like that was a day and a half just to try and figure that out. Like every single decision you make in this, and that is why, as excited as I am about CloneX, and I do genuinely love the project, it's like nobody is ready for this stuff, because like we have all the time in the world and we do it every day to try and figure these things out and try and make them work, and we're trying to push the boundaries every single show that we do to try and just do something new each time, just to get me in real time moving my head. I mean, it's garbage, it doesn't work. Like my phone is overheating. Like this system that we have is, and I can't, if I lift my arms up and down, you can see quite clearly, like my metahuman is the least expressive thing that we have. But we're taking the tools that we have in front of us, Unreal Engine, real-time ray tracing, and the digital 3D assets that we have, like these Meebits, and trying to do something with them. Because I feel like if we try and we show people what's possible, they will follow along and they will want to share their stories with us and share their experiences with us. And also, all the things that we're learning, they can be codified into a blueprint. That blueprint can be shared. Someone else can benefit from that. And then that's how a community begins. But like nobody knows how to do this. And I think that little message there, go pick up Blender or Marvelous or Clo 3D, is a genuine shout out to people to say, we need creators. We need people that can kind of rush into this and just be fearless in a way to try and explore what this can be. And that's why I think that I don't think anyone's really ready for this stuff yet. Not this kind of metaverse scaled up, beautiful version of ourselves that we think is going to be the Ready Player One thing. But Sven, I mean, how do you view the metaverse? Are you bullish on it? Are you worried about it? Is it overhyped? Where do you sit?
So I am definitely bullish on it long term. I completely agree that we're not ready. I mean, it's so apparent, when you look at the limited number of people who can do this stuff and do it well. It's going to take perhaps even a generation of people training for this, and hopefully the technology catches up at the same time. But I am bullish on the current metaverse that we have and the metaverse of the future, right? Today, we are engaging in a social media construct of the metaverse, right? On Discord, on Twitter, wearing our avatars as our profile pictures, or perhaps even, on screen. I wish I was talented enough to animate my ape or my Azuki. I am far from that. So you're stuck with my face. But when you see me on Twitter, right now I'm using the Azuki that we got with Red Bean DAO. That is my personality, for better or for worse. And so I think, the metaverse that we want is far away, but the metaverse that we have today is still a lot of fun and it's exciting. And we're going to be testing a lot of things out, over the coming months and years until we get to a point where, okay, these 3D rigs are ready to go. But that's not next month. It's probably not this year. It's probably not next year. You would know better than me from your experience with Unreal, but it is going to take a while to get this 100%.
Lex, are you in Unreal at all?
Yeah, that was actually when I first found out about this whole wave that was coming, which was probably March 2020. When things were locked down, you had a lot of time to yourself. Read this article, a really good debrief on a website called Virtual Atelier, which is a French-owned. It was basically like a white paper or a big overview of the metaverse. And I didn't really get into the NFT side of it, but in my head I was just like, okay, there's a wave coming. It's the metaverse. The future of that is probably 3D in some way, real-time 3D. I need to learn Unreal Engine. I need to up my 3D skills from what they were. Learn Blender. Blender was the first port of call actually to get better at modeling. And yeah, that led me to Unreal. And I feel your pain with learning it. It's definitely a bit of a learning curve. It's probably it took me about a year to create my first actual final piece of artwork inside Unreal that I released that I was kind of happy with as artwork quality. But it's definitely one of those things that it's getting easier for people. Even the update of Metahuman that you're using now, like before, imagine me I spent a year trying to create a Metahuman, like trying to create what is now just easy as a plugin. I was trying to do the rigging, the character modeling, doing the facial expressions, all of that kind of stuff. So I think the tools will get easier. I think that's already happening, and it's good that you have an understanding of things, like the harder way of doing it. But yeah, like, of course it's going to take time. But when I was learning 3D 20 years ago, there weren't even online tutorials, and you had to just figure it out yourself. And now you can learn things through online and YouTube and things like that. So yeah, it's not accessible yet, but I'm sure there's going to become tools that make it easier as we go on.
Yeah, we just realized that
who's drilling.
Yeah, Sven's microphone is not only a kettle, it's a drilling. It's like a multi-tool.
Well, that is not the mic.
Where are you?
That is actual drilling. If you have ever had the privilege of living in a New York City apartment building, once they're doing some renovations, a few floors above or below, it can be painful. So apologies for that.
Sounds. It was good.
It was good. It was good. So listen,
good sound effect.
I'm going to go back to the inestable WAGMI. I don't know. I mean, this is basically the tool I use to try to judge what's hot and what's not. Thank you, everyone. So listen, look at this. Azuki, CloneX, Bored Ape Yacht Club, Mood Name Yacht Club. But what the hell is Azuki doing up there? Sven, over to you. Red Bean Down, Mr. Red Bean Down. Tell us about Azuki.
So Azuki is a really interesting project. I think a lot of people weren't really aware of it, when they were in the process of coming out. But this is certainly a team that planned for many months, right, to roll out this project, this level of quality, planning for success. Before the initial launch, which was a Dutch auction that began at 1 ETH, which for a project that most people hadn't heard about, that's a lot. And they issued a white paper, very thoughtful tweet thread talking about what they called ERC 721A, and basically a better minting standard that would avoid excessive gas waste. It was very well written. It was very professional, and polished. I mean, you can see from the website here, this is a very well done professional site. All of the preview trailers that they issued, early on were just very high quality art. If you look through the gallery here, super high quality. I love putting it also in golden mode. When you flip on golden mode, the golden Azukis, really pop. Of course, having the screen go to dark mode also helps. But wasn't quite sure what to expect, and was kind of waiting there, seeing, okay, let's see if this auction starts to, kind of get to a point where I think it's more accessible. And it sold out, I think, in 2 minutes at the 1 ETH level. So right off the bat, I was like, oh, well, I missed this. And I, grabbed a couple in secondary, sold a lot of others. And it did something that was, not typical. It revealed, people saw the art, and it went up. People were really connecting with it. And I think when you look at the art, and this is really what first drew me to Azuki, right? Look at the depth. Look at if you pull up some of these Azukis, really study them, the texturing, the shadowing. To me, and what I've heard these described as, and completely agree with it, these are avatars that were designed in 3D but are living in a 2D format, right? It just feels much more high quality in terms of the art than most other projects. And so I think that is what helped them start to pick up momentum. It also was helped by the fact that it's a very balanced collection. If you look, there's really not any bad looking Azukis, and especially male and female Azukis, I think people are able to vibe with equally. A lot of collections, they're kind of tilted one way or the other, and the female avatars are kind of an afterthought. Here, they're not overly feminized. They're just good anime characters, all of them. And so, that, again, another strong point in their favor. But then you actually start to meet the team, understand them. I've listened to them on a couple of Twitter spaces, and they're just really good. They're really good. They're very thoughtful. And when I think about collecting these types of projects, I think about, what teams do I want to be aligned with long term? And I'm very comfortable with this team. and the team, the direction and what they plan to do with this project. So, as I went in with a couple of friends and buying the top rarity Azuki, which rarity is not something that I think is overly important with Azuki. But it's a great looking Azuki. It was a top rarity one, and it was the first sale over 100 ETH. And that really catalyzed the market, from what had been a floor that was, 2.5x over the pre-reveal levels to one that went up quite a bit. So, it wasn't our intent. We just liked it. But, as collectors, we're also investors. And we thought it was, a good value for what was a great looking high rarity NFT in this project. And so far, we've been proven right as there have been several purchases, now north of ours.
So somebody here is saying the Fiat Lux, we haven't seen them. I actually know that you're right, Sven. I know that these were modeled in 3D and then rendered in 2D. Fiat Lux, also fantastic looking characters. I'm just curious why these ones landed. Lex, do you have an opinion on these? Are you digging them?
Yeah, again, it's one of those ones. I didn't see it instantly, and it came to my attention maybe in the last week or so, in the last couple of weeks. Yeah, I mean, I love it. I mean, it kind of kicked off a bit of a wave, didn't it, in terms of the anime art kicking off. It really drew attention to that style that had like a halo effect on a lot of things around it. So actually, I saw also recently a lot of people tried to do like clone or copycat projects, like some of the anonymous teams. You saw those pop up. So I think when those pop up on a trend, it's a sign that there's something there that might have been underlooked previously that people think has value. Not that any of those are any good, because this is obviously the Grail piece. But yeah, I'm definitely a fan of the art, and I agree with your point. I know there's a point in the chat about how they're 2D flat, but I know what you mean about they have a good attention to lighting and texture that gives it that more 3D feel to it, even though it's obviously a 2D rendered image. It definitely has a lot of realistic depth to it that that rings true to good anime illustration.
Yeah, I think the Sven's point's right though, that there's a sort of attention to detail, but there's also like there was a kind of confidence about the way Azuki put themselves out there. Like you could see it, and you went, okay, well, this is nice. This is really, really nice. But it came from nowhere. I was not expecting it. Like Hate Prime, that was the project that I think everyone was expecting to be a banger. And it sort of has been, but like Azuki just came out and did their own thing. Listen, there are some other stories that have been in the news, and I will share them up with you now. We have our next guest just waiting in the wings, but I just wanted to cover some of these things. So, this doesn't work. Puck collaborating with Julian Assange. Does that make any sense to you? That was a weird one, right?
Why do you say it's weird?
Because Puck is generally quite kind of hands off and apolitical. Okay. For them to make a kind of statement like that was unusual. And Alex, Sven, have you got any thoughts on Puck? Are you a fan? I mean, I feel like Puck is at this transitional phase where they need to kind of deliver the massive thing that they promised us over the years. What do you think?
It was a little strange to me too. And not because of the political aspect of it. It felt unnecessary to me. But, I didn't think that a lot of what Puck's done has felt necessary, and he's done very well with it. So, they've done very well with it. Who am I to question that? But I do think there is growing, let's call it Puck fatigue in the collector base, which is, okay, well, we had the fungible that gave us Ash. We waited a long time to do something with Ash. It was just speculative. Then we get Poets. Okay, well, it was really Pages then Poets. Where is that going? Then we get Mass and Merge. Where is this going? And I just question how many projects can you carry at once without some payoff? And I don't mean payoff in a financial sense. I mean, these are games. And Puck is careful to say, I am not just an artist, right? I mean, look, they are a master at gamification, and it is performance art. right? It is a different type of art than I think people first associated with Pac when the earliest pieces that were minted, right? People said, oh, this is really interesting art, but it was always leading to this performance piece. Because certainly when you look at the art on the screen, right, the actual image on the NFT with mass, right, it didn't even look like the marketing materials. Nobody would buy that just for the artistic value. It's the game. So we have these 3 now ongoing games, and none of them are resulting in what people were expecting, which is fine. He doesn't owe, Pac doesn't owe anything to the collectors. If $90 million is raised on mass, that was the choice of the collectors. That's fine. But I just wonder if you don't start having some type of delivery, people will grow tired of the act.
So there's a tension here, which is people feel like they missed out on a Clone X or an Azuki, and the prices are so prohibitive now, unless you really have, Ethereum lying dormant to just buy into these things. It is very, very difficult to get in. And so what I enjoyed about Puck was that there was a commitment to be an artist and yet still respect the culture and the conventions of the culture that people expect across the different spectrums that NFTs exist in. And I thought they were very good at delivering that. But I think what you are rightly pointing out is that, and now what? And that we're starting to see, for instance, with Artifact, there's like, we go here, then this happens. We go here, and then this happens. You can kind of see it rolling out. Okay, well, I can get here. And it might be some hard work to get there, but at least you kind of know that they respect you along that journey. One of the interesting stories this week was this. It was Disney. Did you see this one, Lex?
Yeah. That looks exciting.
So if you didn't know, Disney put out a job description, and here's the crucial bit. It says you will help lead Disney's efforts in the NFT space, including monitoring the evolving marketplace, setting category strategy, and managing key partners. Sven, what do you make of this?
It was very interesting timing, because yesterday when I was listening to the Azuki team on a Spaces, and they were asked, and this is on the Oshani show, and Oshani asked, what do you see yourselves doing with this business, because it's a business, in the next several years? And they said, we hope to be the Disney of the metaverse, right? And then you have Disney coming in, and what do they want? They want to be the Azuki of the real world. And so, look, this is inevitable. It's further validation, right? It builds on what Nike did. This is hugely validating to all of us that have not, I don't want to say invested financially, invested our time and our kind of dreams in the future of the metaverse and NFTs and Web3. But I also just question, can Disney do it better? I mean, Disney was great at acquisitions. They acquired Marvel. They acquired Pixar. Can they build this? I don't know. My sense is,
well, they're not just great at acquisitions. They're also great at hiring. Mm-hmm. And if you want the best talent to work for you, then you go and get it. And I think what's interesting about all of this is Disney's acquisition of Star Wars. Like, Marvel was sort of doing its own thing, but Star Wars was more of a dead-end brand at the point at which they took it on, and they've rehabilitated it to the point at which a new generation loves The Mandalorian. They love Boba Fett. And that's no mean feat. You don't write off Disney. That's a hugely talented group of people.
I am not writing off Disney by any stretch of the imagination. That would be very foolish. They've proven to be a durable company.
And they're an entertainment brand. Let's be honest. They're an entertainment brand.
They are great creators, and they have great creators, within their umbrella. And I definitely agree with you. They will hire aggressively here. But will they do it better than those that are native and those that are already planning to do this? Will they do it, faster? Probably not. So they'll have their own brands that they build, and they'll acquire others. Disney is not going to give up, being the entertainment king, right, anytime soon. They will aggressively fight to remain relevant if we begin, continuing this transition into the metaverse.
But I honestly think that it's less of a problem for them than it would be for, say, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, because Facebook is so deeply associated with Web 2. Disney doesn't have that problem. Disney's gone through, 70 odd years of transitions and it's kind of weathered them pretty exceptionally well. And so this isn't really the argument that they're in. There's like, well, this is this exciting thing and we can play a part of it. And we've weathered that and done that job just over and over and over. It is now time to bring on a project that is doing something very, very interesting. So let's give ourselves a big welcome for the World Wide Web. It's a part. Ow! Stop it! I don't pay him enough. Welcome to the stream. We didn't. There you go. Welcome.
I feel like I'm in Black Mirror, man. This is some Black Mirror going on, right? Can I swear? Like, what are the rules?
Yeah, you can swear. This is the
no rules.
Man.
There's no rules.
There's no
shit. This is the most dystopian thing I've done all
week. If you don't know who else is on the stream, we have Vector Mojo with us. We have Sven, NFT. And we'd love to hear about World Wide Web. What is it and what's going on with it? And can we play it? Actually, I think we could probably play it right now.
You can play it. You can play it right now. Click that big. I hate this website because we spent so much time building the game that we didn't build a website, and I've been building this website in the background. So apologies for that, like very Web 2 website. But you've already played the game. You've jumped in already. You've had a little dive about. Look at this.
Don't tell anyone. But yes, we did.
Not me being like, I know where you are right now while you're there.
Explain. What am I looking at here? Because it feels. What is this? Is this the metaverse?
Well, are you going to log in with your MetaMask? That's the question, and we can do that live on stream. Can we go?
I'm not. No, I'm too scared.
No, don't be scared. I just mean like, I don't know if you want to reveal that wallet, like the contents of that.
Listen, the balance is too big.
Do you still have SOS? Like,
I do tutorials every week, and like every time I'm like, who's going to be screen capping this, and then they're going to attack me. Like, it's a horrifying thing. But yeah, give us an overview of what this is and what I'm looking at here, because people keep telling me about this. I'm like, I need to check it out. So now we have you here. Tell us.
Yeah.
What's the story?
I mean, I feel like, you know what we should do? Like, we should just have some real fun real quick. I should just ping some people to jump in to outside to
damn. Do you want to share your screen?
Go.
Share your screen?
No. I just pinged like the community, and I'll just ask some people to come out, and you can get a better idea of what they're up to. So yeah, what you're looking at? Yeah. So you're looking at this is the World Wide Web, right? It's a 2D MMORPG that I started building a few years ago, and now with Web3 we've kind of evolved into this interoperable metaverse. So right now you're looking at there's a lava lad. If you hold down Shift, I think, or if you press E, there you go, and now you can right click him. And bam, shit. He's in. Open up an OpenSea. So like, yeah, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to build this open metaverse that's interoperable. And we started out by basically incorporating. There's Hash. He's gonna show you around. This is from one of our quests. But we started trying to build this game where we realized that you're talking about Zuki and some other projects. Actually, Pack, funny enough, bought the apartment ID 0, funny enough, with the intention of trying to make it the most expensive apartment in the whole space, with some sort of clever artistic vision. But what we're trying to do, we realized that NFTs and PFPs are 2D, and people identify as them. And you're talking about Disney and all these brands. It's like, okay, we're seeing the birth of the meta brand, right? Like metaverse brands that are creating these worlds, these universes. Oh, you can go up there. There's some people having a party. And what we discovered is that on the roadmap of all these projects is like, make a game, right? Like we want to make a metaverse game or some sort, but there aren't that many game devs in the space, and there's a lot of backlash from the game dev community. I'm sure you've seen all of the game dev studios, all of their employees, kicking up a fuss about the announcements that have come out from, most of the studios about NFTs. And so what we've decided to do is, with the limitations that you have on app stores for making crypto games, you can't make blockchain games on app stores, and you can't make them on consoles. we've built this interoperable world where you can come in, and we've integrated over 1 million avatars from NFT projects like, you know, Cyberkongs, CryptoPunks, Lava Lads, you know, and recently the Doodles actually had a DAO vote where they voted to have pixel versions of all of the Doodles created, so when you logged in the game you could play as that. And yeah, we're trying to build out a metaverse world inspired by kind of the sort of like Snow Crasher, like Ready Player One kind of universe, where players will come and play games and they can obtain items and play competitive PvP. So like things we're trying to do are like, you know, you battle your friends in a Smash Bros style game, and the winner takes both NFTs from the fight, right? Like, you know, and some of the RuneScape stuff, go into the wilderness and, you know, fight PvP against people, and you lose all your items if you lose. But then bringing in some of those world PvP events we had from WoW, you know, like you're going to go out into a zone, and one day like a giant, you know, a giant doge might appear, and whoever kills the giant doge gets a super rare item. And we've really kind of like, we're really working on utility with items. So if you go back down to where you were, you saw like everyone's partying. That was because of a disco ball item, which is an item that's on, you know, secondary market you can buy. And if you have that disco ball, it forces everyone within a 15-yard radius to start dancing. So we're building out this world where, you know, we do these things, and it's built on the back of the land, right? We believe that, like, you know, the land thing for the metaverse is very important, and Sandbox have done it, Decentraland have done it. But what they failed to do, we think, is create a world for gamers to play in. And so we're focusing very heavily on building this game world and then letting players incorporate it into their land, into their apartments. You know, there's a party going now. We've got a party going. And so, yeah, that's where we're at. You know, we think we actually we have.
Well, what am I looking at here? This is fucking nuts. Like, what can I do here? I'm just walking around like a little weird pixelated thing and bouncing up and down. Like, this is this for kids? Like, what is this?
No, this is like, I mean, you want to go play the game, like, you know, go mine some gold. You can go win an NFT. Like, this is the vision of play to earn, how it should be, right? It's real time. So if you want to go and you know, get some rare items that are worth now in the secondary market, and you're up to like 12, 15 ETH, there's a quest in this game that'll tell you how to do it, and you can go and try and do it. And that's what we think play to earn should be. We think it should be something where people have to complete quests, complete challenges, you know, go out into the world and find these items, instead of it being something that's kind of like idle and like a cookie clicker. So right now you're just looking at, you know, a bunch of people that believe in the project, like, you know, that they it's like that. It's like, why do we play social games, right? It's like some of these people just, that's, you know, like these are their PFPs. Now they're running around in a metaverse environment doing the same thing, but there's the play to earn element too. So we're going to be rolling out in the next couple of weeks land where you can, you know, landholders can build their apartments, create their own NPCs and their own quests, their own stories. I mean, you know, we're trying to create this sort of environment where people can sort of build their own, you know, corner of the metaverse and have the flexibility, like products like, you know, Roblox and Fortnite, and, you know, where they can kind of create on Minecraft, they can create something for themselves, but it's powered by, you know, decentralized Web3 technology, blockchain technology.
Wow.
Lex, I know you had some questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I generally following P2E gaming. I'm really interested in it. I've got a background working in the games industry here and there, doing cutscene stuff. So, you know, NFTs and gaming, I'm obsessed. And I saw this project, I guess, when, you know, you had some very good or very interesting people buying these apartments. Like you said, Pack. I saw Xcopy buy some of your apartments. I saw Fuck Render buying some of your apartments. And yeah, I, you know, started to take notice about the different penthouses you can buy and the land acquisition side of it. I guess so with the play to earn element, are you saying then it's essentially the NFTs that are the currency? Like, you earn those by doing a quest and they activate some utility in the game, but then they're also the things that people buy and trade, or is there going to be some kind of economic system with a coin integration as well?
Yeah. So, like, we've not officially announced our tokenomics. So when I talk about it, it's always chaos because the community goes nuts and everyone is like, you know, alpha at the front door. So I'm going to start this by saying, let me just throw some little bit of alpha, so to speak. But
alpha, that's what we want. That's what we want.
We like a bit of alpha. So here's where we're at, right? It's like, we can all agree that economic systems worldwide. I don't know economics. I failed my economics degree because I went to make video games. But from what I learned about macroeconomics, we can all agree that most of these economic systems fail because governments need to constantly, quantitative easing, print money, create money. And the issue with any tokenomic system is that it's kind of hard to do that unless you have an inflationary token. So we're trying to work out how we can create a metaverse game where players can come in and, like, playing the game, defeating monsters, completing quests, they do earn that token, right? And that token is kind of like your game currency. It's like your game gold. But built in that is items. So it's like, to obtain more gold and to obtain better items, you need to acquire items in order to be able to be more competitive, whether it be, better attacks or potions, buffs. So what we're kind of working on is a system whereby instead of having like a traditional RPG where you go to the blacksmith and he gives you an item or you get a buff from the potions master, we're trying to incorporate that into land itself. So the players are the people that create these experiences. We create the shell of this is what this thing is going to do, and then the player gets to write the narrative of what that vendor gives and host it inside their land, right? So the idea is that we create this vibrant metaverse economy by building like, okay, well, here's all the jobs and things that you need doing in the metaverse. Now all of you guys can decide the story and the lore, and also some of the economy for it. So that'll kind of keep this sort of inflationary, deflationary circle moving around and around. And the idea is that people will have to spend the coin in order to obtain those items. So it's like, in order for the game to, you think of it as like Ready Player One, right? Everyone's running to Planet Doom to get like the best stuff. It's like, okay, how do you get to Planet Doom? Once you're there, if you die, you lose all of your buffs. And without your buffs, you're not competitive enough to be able to potentially win or get a high enough drop rate to get some of these rare NFT items. And like, at the end of the day, the NFT items are one of the key concepts. But what's nice about what we're doing is that doesn't mean there are items, right? Like, we're interoperable. So one of the items could be like a meta key. It could be a Bored Ape. Like, one of the bosses could be a doodle. They could be, NFTs that we've purchased from our treasury and have now built into the game as a boss fight, an engagement, or as a drop of item. And so the economy is kind of fueled by really our creativity and ability to balance it out using these kind of, demand for other NFTs in the ecosystem. So look, it's a complicated thing we're trying to do, and we're not trying to rush it. Like, we're one of the few pre-token metaverse worlds that has land. But, I believe very strongly our currency has to be a token. It's inevitable for that to happen. And we're working very hard on we're working very hard on trying to make sure that isn't something that just crashes like the prophecy foretells.
Yeah, I just think that's so interesting with all these games. It's almost like you have economists joining these teams that now it's like a petri dish for trying out different models of different economies. And it's probably an antithesis to the fact we live in a world with an inflationary currency, and now we can test out little worlds and little economies via games that have inflationary and deflationary mechanics in them.
Yeah.
So for me, somebody who's probably didn't study economics, didn't even start, but has a passing interest in it, and especially in terms of these games. So would you say then, so most of these games seem, and this, I have a vague understanding of like DeFi and how that kind of plays out with different deflationary tokens and the pros and cons, a little bit of both, but not completely. But I see a lot of these games, and maybe you can give an idiot's guide off of this, but I see a lot of these games, their aim is to create a deflationary token, because I guess as a model, but do you understand, like, or can you give an idiot's guide to like the pros and cons? And are you trying to tread a balance? Because you mentioned like inflationary, deflationary. Is there like an in between that you're trying to hit, or am I just kind of missing the point of these? Because I've just seen deflationary thrown around a lot in other P2E, but I noticed you said both.
Yeah, right. Well, it's like you said it so well. Like, you have sinks, and so it's like, why do people need the currency in the first place? And so it's like, the issue arises, right, when you have a dollar value associated to a game currency. Now people want to buy it and hold it, and then there's like supply shock, like all these issues. So I think like if we had a deflationary currency, like how does that work in 20 years? Like, is it, or 5 years, or however long? Like, I think the mechanism really how to make it work is somewhat complicated. I like the idea of there being a finite supply of currency in the system. At the same time, it's like, well, what's nice about the contract, so to speak, is that you can somewhat make the token, inflationary as a function of the number of players that have obtained a certain achievement in game. So it's like, kind of like how you have, I think of it sometimes as if like a mining network, right? It's like the more people mining, the less money everyone gets from their part in mining, right? It's just like we can build in these really clever, kind of supply demand systems that cause the token to dynamically inflate or deflate based on the players. And so that's a part of the system which basically circulates token supply, because we're not talking about like, a few things. We're talking about having a full-blown economy where we get to decide as the game designers or the economic kind of designers of the game, so to speak. We get to decide what things cost a lot and what things are valuable and what the high supply or low supply. And, if we have a load of gamers, a load of players that love the game as we do, right? We've got like 5,000 wallet holders and, over 60,000 connected wallets like players. And when we drop a quest in the first few hours, we have like 20,000 people come in. So if you have that demand, it's like, well, we can balance out the economy by offering better items, right? Or better utility or fast utility or higher returns. And the cost of that item can be a deflationary mechanism by putting the tokens that, spent on it back into the ecosystem, right? So it's like, give coin out to the people and then charge a lot of coin for the expensive things to be able to obtain better utility and better characters. Because the thing is like this thing about play to earn, right? Play to earn at the moment feels like a DeFi protocol. It doesn't feel like a game. Like, doesn't feel like a game at all. So it's like, why do people play games? Well, there's a lot of different types of gamers: casual gamers, hardcore gamers, social gamers. And, we want to make a game that ultimately, maybe not like Minecraft, hits all of those notes, but it is a fun game to play. And for that to be true, there has to be progression. Like, players have to feel like they can progress and build their character. They get to identify as their character with the interoperability concept. So, for the progression to take place, like that's our mechanism there to enable players to not only own that progression, but also to balance out the rest of the economy. Because, if people want to be able to fuck their friends up in PvP, or like go out into the wilderness and like bang people up, or at least have the chance to, like, those items will help us balance it. So we're working with some really cool guys though. Like, I'll be honest, I can't say who, but we're working with some cool guys, and you were talking about top talent. Like, you're so right. Like, hiring top talent is one of those things where, I think that's nice if you got some crazy ideas. People like working on crazy things. So wow. I think that we're trying to do it right, and I'm sure we're going to make a mess of it in the process. But I think it's definitely going to be a fun experience, fun ride.
Wow, it's like a simulation, and you're the god, kind of.
I don't feel like it. I feel like I don't feel like it. I mean, like, there's a team. There's over 30 of us, right? There's only over 15 game devs alone. So it's not just me making all of the decisions and inputs. I've got a great team. People have made video games for huge. Like, I'm making games for brands. People have made video games, like worked on games that have been huge on Steam. So we've got a lot of game input, and we've got we're working with some really great people in the tokenomics world to trying to work out how we can do this differently. Because like I said, I don't think it's really been, have you guys seen a game yet that you think is like a really great playable? I mean, like God's Unchained, I think that's a pretty great Hearthstone, but I think like in terms of like real time gaming, I haven't seen anything that really catches my eye yet with the tokenomic system. Have you?
I thought that was the whole point of NFTs. It's like nobody actually plays the game. Everybody just speculates on playing the game.
That sounds.
I want to get your perspective. What do you?
Sven has a question. Sorry.
Yeah. What do you make?
Well, it's a good point actually that Vector just made, which is NFTs are games in themselves. It's just games that people aren't playing. They're speculating on the perspective game. But when I look at this, the first thing I notice is people are having fun, right? People are enjoying themselves playing the game, and sure I remember when this first came out, right? There was a novelty, everyone kind of enjoyed it, but they're still here, right? This isn't brand new anymore. And so my question would be, you talk about trying to figure out the tokenomics. You're not, economists, but you have to think about building an economy. And I guess when you approach this, what do you think is actually more important? I know they're both very important, but if you had to pick one, is it getting the tokenomics right? Or is it making sure that this is a game that people want to play, right? That they enjoy, that it's fun, that it has a purpose. And I have thoughts on this, but I'm curious, which do you think, above all else, is the top priority?
It's a good question. The hard thing is that I don't feel like they're mutually exclusive in the sense that, in order for us to make a great game, right, where ultimately the players get to build out the economy, right, and build out the world themselves. And our job as a game studio is to be very, very aware of what the community is doing, what the game economy is doing, and what people want to do. Because this isn't about us making like World of Warcraft. It's about going to the community, going to people and saying, you know, just like with Roblox, like you go and make your own games in your own world, and we'll try and build the mini games, the items, the engagements that you want. You know, the DAO can vote for stuff. So, you know, it's important to me that we make a really fun game. The tokenomics is somewhat the currency for exchanging in the game. That, you know, is obviously it's obviously vital. But at the moment, there is no token. We have in-game gold. That gold is kind of, you know, people grind for it. It's a bit grindy sometimes. Sometimes it's like, you know, in a battle. But what really matters is the NFT item they get afterwards, because that's like non-fungible, right? It's so what's nice is that I feel like we kind of have, you know, with that, it's like my focus is on making a really, really great game that has NFT utility and interoperability and not rushing the token, because I feel like if we take some time, and I don't want to take forever, like, you know, I kind of want to drop it yesterday, let's be real. Like, it would make my life a lot easier to go and build out some of the stuff I want to build. But we've got so much. This is the beautiful thing about these games, is that like you can have these secondary fees, right? So like our whole game studio is funded by people trading based on how much value we give them. So like we create great items and great quests and great games, and people want these items and want the land, and that keeps us hiring more people and spending more time and hiring the better talent on getting the tokenomics, you know, slamming right, instead of being like, oh, we need the tokenomics in order to be able to build a game studio. So, you know, I feel like that makes me feel like the tokenomics is the most important thing, because we're not just like rushing out, like, you know, but we can make games, you know, no problem. That's not hard. I think the tokenomics is like, that's the hard part. So yeah, maybe the tokenomics thing is the most important thing, like, because it's going to be, I would like make the argument, it's going to be, you know, these are the first, like you said, the petri dishes, the first takes at like, how does an online game economy look and feel when there is free, open, decentralized trade? And I don't think anyone really knows the answer yet.
The funny thing about what I'm doing at the moment is that we are, I mean, I'm a 24-year veteran of making films. We're doing this for a very, very, very long time. I know how to do it. You give me a script to write, I can write it in an hour. You give me a camera, I know how to use it. Unreal Engine. Yes, I am a goddamn legend in my own field. Like, I get into Unreal Engine, I'm like a newborn baby just pooping its pants every single second, completely just unable to do anything. It's given me like this insane respect for game developers, because not only are games have been sort of logic based, but also gameplay based, have these huge communities, but they're also now becoming visual cinematic experiences that have to rival television. I mean, it's insane, the toolkit there. And so I've come out of this entire experience going, anyone who says they're building a game is either a lunatic, a liar, or a genius. So decide which one it's going to be. And I can guarantee you most of them are not geniuses. So it's sort of heartening to me to see like a very simple game that's more about gameplay than about promises of like, oh, look at the incredible detail on the model. The model is beautiful.
Well,
beautiful.
There's a great reason for that.
We've rendered it using this incredible render engine. It's beautiful. But like, does it work? No. When will it work? Well, maybe next year. So it's
there's
nice
a great reason for that, right? It's like, you know, right now you can't go on the App Store and play any blockchain game, and you can't go on, like, in a click of a button we could be on Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, like our game engine exports all that stuff. But people are on their mobile phones.
Rewind.
Yeah.
You can't play any blockchain game. I think you can, but they're not very good. But I think you can.
You can't log in with MetaMask though, right?
You cannot log in with MetaMask. Now, there's a massive wall up. But I think that wall is going to come down pretty soon.
They're finding ways to do it. People use apps, like clever apps, to get around it. And, you know, you've got like Wallet Connect, scan your QR, backend things. But I think the issue is like terms of services, right? It's like it goes against Apple App Stores, you know, in-app purchase thing, which Epic have been fighting them on fighting them against for ages. And you look at Nintendo, like Nintendo don't even have a competition for their games. You know, Smash is one of the most competitive games, or Mario Kart. There's no, you know, they don't believe in competition. Do they believe in blockchain? Doubt it. So it's like, you know, I think that what you said is like, and Steam, like look at Steam. I don't see Steam doing that anytime soon. And as a result, it kind of just feels like, you know, for me, yeah, I get you. Like, do I believe the metaverse is going to be like 2D pixel art? No, but there are so many things we need to work out. And right now, all the voices and opinions, everyone is so, their heart is in it. These early adopters in the idea of decentralization, interoperability, Web3, crypto, you know, and there's so much stuff about the metaverse and gaming we need to work out. So I'm like, why can't we just do that in this 2D space? We did it with NFTs in a 2D way, right? We started with CryptoPunks being really the big popping off one. But, you know, if you look at Crypto Kitties, it's like a 2D game. If we're doing this stuff in 2D, why can't we do the metaverse in 2D first too? Because we can develop at, you know, an absolute crazy speed, instead of, like you rightly said, being like, oh, I spent 19 days doing the rigging for this one character. And
oh my
now
God, it's horrific. It's
horrific.
horrific.
It's horrific.
It is. It's horrific.
That's why they're so expensive. They're like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like we managed to spawn a banana that looks like crap, that lands on my head, and the collision mesh is just horrific. It's going through my head. Let's see if we can bring that up. Like this is garbage. This is utter garbage, and we know it's garbage, but we're not scared of it. Oh, that's me. I don't need that. There we go. There's Alp, can you show the second camera? The amount of time it took us just to figure this out.
This feels like I'm in a portal, like you're about to reveal the cake.
And it's garbage. It's garbage. It's garbage. But
no, it's cool. It looks great. I'm like,
we embrace the glitches. We embrace the stupidness of it, because I think that's the point. We do all our learning in public, and we're not trying to present a finished product here. I've had to relearn all of the instincts that I had, which was be a filmmaker and aspire to the highest level of cinematic quality you can. Like, you know, you'd stick a 35mm adapter on a DV camera, and suddenly you'd have access to the glass, and so a lens baby would give you these incredible visual effects. That stuff, it all goes away once you use, you know, Unreal Engine and everything else. But you introduce all these insane variables, like what level of ray tracing you're using, what level of detail in your meshes are you using, you know, how fast is your graphics card, how fast is your computer, how, like, what are you actually trying to do at the same time? You know, we're now introducing mocap data. So I've got my face being mocapped through my phone, but my phone is overheating. Well, that's no good. But I don't care, because I'm having so much fun doing it. This week, we've been having to deal with a young man from Canada by the name of Dan Olson, who just shat so hard all over Web3, all over Bitcoin, all over decentralization, all over NFTs in particular, and all over the idiots that we all are. Because we all are, in fact, idiots. We're scammers, we're hustlers, and we're trying to defraud everyone in this space out of their money. Sven, you first. You watched that film. I know you did, because you had to. What was your take on it?
Well, my take on it is I didn't realize I was a scammer and a hustler.
Wish you are. Look at you.
Yeah, look at me. I can't even get a real microphone. That's the scam. You know, look.
Truth.
There are certainly scammers and hustlers out there. It is still a gold rush, right? With the early days of Web3, but most people I encounter here are very genuine people, right? And you know, look at the people that were just having a dance party, you know, in the game. They're just people here to have fun, enjoy themselves, explore, hopefully make some money along the way. You know, I think that is what I take away from most people that are entering the metaverse. You know, the massive financial windfalls that people are getting might catch a lot of attention, but I think people stick around because they're enjoying themselves. And so, you know, I kind of, you know, if we're idiots, then let's embrace that. You know, we are experimenting, we are pushing things forward, and certainly we may be idiots, but you know, Disney, they're not an idiot, right? The people, you know, that are hiring NFT managers at Disney are very smart. Nike, not idiots. So you know, call us what you want. I think most people here are genuine, good people. You know, here to enjoy themselves, here to explore. Here, you know, this is kind of the new frontier. We're explorers, at our nature. And so I don't pay much attention to nonsense that people try to spew. I know you have to address it, but I think it's foolish.
Well, my take on it was it wasn't nonsense. There was a lot that was extremely well researched and also very, very true. There is a lot of garbage, and it's very easy to dismiss that garbage. And in some ways, it feels like people who don't understand the culture dismissing it because it impinges on their sense of reality or their sense of self or anything else. I think if you spend any time in this space, you kind of just learn to put all that to one side and just live in the hyper present. Just experience the now for what it is. It's very, very difficult to explain that to anyone that doesn't spend a long period of time in it. But as you rightly said, there is, for every scammer, there's probably 50 people who are not scammers. They're just naive and don't know how to use the language in a way that isn't sort of over exuberant and everything else. I tend to be more of the optimistic point of view, which is most people just they just don't want their life to suck. And like, if you tell them their life sucks, they're going to not like that. And they're going to hate you for it. And so their life will suck. So don't tell them their life sucks, because then their life won't suck. It's pointing out that their life sucks means that their life sucks. If they didn't know their life sucked, it wouldn't suck. Does that make any kind of sense at all? I feel like
that makes a lot of sense. No. Look, I mean, this has been talked about at length in the past, but why are we here right now? Why did NFTs take off last year? Everyone's life kind of sucked, right? We had the pandemic. We were stuck inside. Felt, for a lot of people, hopeless, bleak, like losing. This has been a significant portion of your life. If you are 20 years old, think about it. 10% of your life has now been in the pandemic, right? And this is the time when you think you're going to be out. A lot of people are, starting to, reopen and embrace that. But NFTs came around, Web3 came around at a time when I think a lot of people needed it. And so when you think about the things that, the pandemic pulled forward, work from home, Zoom, it pulled the metaverse forward. I don't know how many years it pulled it forward, but it pulled it forward a lot of years. And so, I agree. This is optimistic. This is escapism, but also it is the future, right? And people are embracing what the future, will be. Look, you're also right that you're in this all the time. It's nonstop. You often don't have time to step back to, have a good perspective on, what we should embrace versus a lot of the junk that's out there. There's a lot of junk out there, scamming projects, things that aren't worth our time, and people go ahead and buy anyway. Pump on Twitter for a few days and move on. It doesn't take away from the good that people are building and people are developing right now.
Well said, Sven. I can always rely on you for a good soundbite. Mr. Web 3333 from my home country of the United Kingdom. How's Boris? Are you still based in England?
Yeah, I am actually. God knows.
My gosh.
I'm more concerned with metaverse, politics these days. It's like, how do we have those political systems where essentially, based on the current model, the rich get to buy votes, right? It's an interesting thing. I think Vitalik made a really interesting point with his post about soul-bound NFTs, his concept of having to earn an NFT and then it being, you can't trade it, but you can verify the ownership and verify the time of when it was owned, perhaps. I guess there's still even a verified thing. But yeah, traditional politics just seems like it's too much corruption and smoke and mirrors. I prefer it on the blockchain, or at least I can trace some of it or speculate about who's who,
Yeah, there's some deep fault lines that grew up out of Brexit that a country like the United Kingdom just sort of hasn't been privy to, and it feels like it's falling weirdly behind on so many issues and getting bogged down in a bunch of things. Funny enough, I was talking to our American cousins on Real Vision yesterday about the need for the US to just man up and figure out how to do a CBDC, central bank digital currency, which is, a digital stablecoin, but owned by central banks. And like Congress just cannot get out of its own ass. It's incredible.
They don't want it. why would they want it? Like, you know, we're talking about the petrodollar,
Taxation.
like the whole,
Taxation.
yeah, well, yeah, but also like, you know, oil, like, you know, it's all pegged against the dollar, and you know, anytime there's anyone that threatens that, it's a big no-no. So I don't, you know, I don't see that being a, you know, mate, I don't see it as being it's gonna happen. I don't. What do you guys think, huh? You think that because we've got it right, we've got Bitcoin, we've got Ethereum, and one could argue that they're two kind of different things, really. But you know, we've got these two. What's to say that they can't end up being? Obviously, we've got scalability issues, but like, you know, what's to say that they can't just be the world currencies? Do we need a world currency? Right? Does that work? You know, based on history.
The really interesting thing is, like, from your perspective as a game designer, in-game currencies are a pretty big deal, and the in-game items are a pretty big deal, and they don't necessarily need to have any correlation with the real world unless you need to buy milk. So what I'm interested in at the moment is there are entities that will allow you to have a debit card and fuel that debit card with cryptocurrencies, stablecoins, UST or USDC, like a legit stablecoin, and bypass what we would call a normal retail bank. I think it's pretty clear that NFTs are going to go in that same direction. So you'll be able to fund a debit card with NFTs that have a.
Well, you get loans with an NFT, right? So yeah,
exactly. So that's the financialization of that component of it is going to come. So why do we care anyway? Because we're simply going to bypass it. The thing for the banks and for governments is they want to tax you and they want to tax your income for obvious reasons, and I think that's fair enough. But if they can't pinch you there, and they can't make it disproportionately difficult for you to off ramp, then how are they going to pinch you? That's the question, and I think that's where India yesterday announced that they were going to be doing a 30% tax rate on crypto. Any of your crypto activities, they would tax you, and you wouldn't be able to tax loss harvest against that. But this is India. There's 1.4 billion people in India. And they said, okay, CBDC, here we go. And we will tax you. And it's like, holy shit, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. You know, it's like
it's a disincentive though, isn't it? Right?
In the US. It's crazy.
It's a disincentive to you know, move your liquid assets into something that isn't their currency. It's like, you know, it's like all countries with their own currencies are essentially just their own coin, right? And it's like, what happens when everyone moves their liquidity or their, you know, their money from one coin to another? It tanks. And when it tanks hard, sometimes it's very hard for it ever to pick up again, right? And it's just human psychology. Like that's all that markets and economics are. It's all human psychology, and it's governed somewhat by, you know, big institutions or whales or whatever. You know, we can speculate on that forever. But you know, when you think about moves like that, you know, that's basically that India just saying, hey, don't buy cryptocurrency, because like India's a very tech forward, you know, there's some great tech centers in India.
There's
it's
some
like
amazing
these people know about Web3,
amazing
right?
codes.
They know about Web3,
so
and if someone
talent.
goes, hey, we've got this new thing, it's called Web3, it's like databases, except now they're kind of like open, decentralized, everyone can access them. Privacy thing is actually not a problem because you have this like anonymity thing, and also it's also kind of using this like cool money, which is also kind of a part of the ecosystem. It's like electricity and money at the same time. No engineer's going to look at that and go, this, the people who don't really get it, who will, I mean, straight away will just say, what is this doing that I can't already do? Like, they're like, wait, we've had databases forever. And then there's the people who do get it, and they're like, oh, wait, so I can just do away with everything. Like, you don't need anything other than just this one system and in the internet. There's no real world tie to it anymore. It's like, okay, cool, the internet's free, it's open, you can do it whatever you want. There's no bank that's going to stop you from transacting with this website. You're not going to have like a WikiLeaks situation where PayPal will shut down donations. It's like there's no, and that's like what the definition of the internet was meant to be. So I can see why India would make a statement like that. Like, you know, imagine if, what did you say, like 1.4 billion people, I think you said, imagine if they all just took all of their money and put it in Ethereum. Like, they were like, oh my God, there's no economic activity in India, our GDP's screwed. Like, you know, it's a terrible threat to global economics. So that's why India should buy some Bitcoin, I think, and hedge against it in the most recent dip.
I think there's a fundamental truth in all of this, which is there is a rational view on pretty much everything, including politics, including government, including economics, that you can present and say, this is the way it should be. In reality, human beings don't conform to that. And you can try and make them, but increasingly we're seeing that they don't. And that's because we're human beings. We're fundamentally irrational. Those who criticize crypto are seeking to impose this rational blueprint, this rational worldview on it, and it refuses to conform to that. So you have basically two choices. You either fight that and say, this is wrong. We've seen this repeated over and over and over. People resist these things. I remember the French government tried to impose a limit on what you could do with the French language because they were worried that the French language itself was being corrupted. But actually, language doesn't work like that. Language is thoroughly viral in the way that it's used, and it will go where it wants to go. Fight it at your peril. Blockchain is exactly the same thing. Human nature wants to go where it wants to go. And so you have these massively rational commentators saying, it is not right. And then you have these other people on the side going, yeah, we know that. That's why we love it. And actually, we're very, very happy there. So why are you trying to impose your rational rules on us when we are perfectly capable of being functionally irrational in the same way that a functional alcoholic can be drinking 5 glasses of wine a night? And I'm not suggesting that alcoholism is good, but like it is perfectly possible to be deeply embedded in something and saturated with it, but also still do your job very, very well and still do everything you need to do without it being a threat to national security or a threat to the world order. That's the bit that I think people just don't get. It's either one thing or another, massively polarized. But it's like, no, there's a fantastic middle class of people that can be both rational and irrational in equal measure 50 times a day. So bizarre. I'm going to shut up.
Me feel like
there. Just somebody talk.
I know you're making me feel like all of my apartment holders are going to cause World War III. Like, the world market's going to crash. It's like they're buying penthouses. They're online and they're worth more than the real world apartments. Like, what are we going to do? The whole mortgage system's going to crash. It's like The Big Short 2008 all over again. Like.
Well, listen, the music has started, which means it's probably time to end the stream. So listen, thanks so much to my guests. We had Sven, we had Victor Meldrew, as always, and Web3, Mr. Web3. I don't even know what your name is. That's how anonymous this space is. But I know you've been a fantastic guest on the show. I'm very excited to see where you guys go next with it, and I'm definitely going to get in and play the game. My thanks to Abgazimov, who was piloting, and the bananas. We are making so much progress, and it's so slow. Thanks to everyone who joined the stream. All, God knows, like 5 of you. It's the perils of being a Web3. But thanks so much. We will join you the next week for another NFT show. And as always, stay safe out there. Don't give anyone your private keys. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Have a good one.